This is CRP Minute, and I'm going to briefly cover this because we are going to cover this on the podcast probably tonight. Me, Chad, and Miguel. And we're going to break this down a lot more thoroughly and analyze every little detail that could possibly be tied into this. But as you see here, this headline from Ariel Helwani: St Pierre will announce his retirement from MMA tomorrow morning at a press conference in Montreal. Multiple sources told ESPN. And notice this last part of this headline. GSP had hoped to secure a super fight with Khabib. Once that didn't materialize, he decided it's time to walk away. I don't believe any of this. I'm just going to come right out and say this. I do not believe any of this, and I'm very confident of this. This is a game of chicken between GSP and the UFC. Basically, what he is saying right now is he's telling the UFC that my clock is running out. Time is running out. He's telling them, I will walk away if you don't hurry up with this, because they would be foolish to let the super fight involving St Pierre at this point, whether it's Khabib, Conor McGregor, or Ben Askren, or Tyron Woodley, which will almost guaranteed not happen. But with any of the other three, they'd be foolish to do that. And George doesn't want that. George wants another fight. George wants to build on his legacy. George wants to. He's made this very clear, and it's no surprise that right away after all this happened, Khabib comes right out and offers to fight Georges St Pierre in a retirement fight. He's coming right out saying, fight me before you retire. I want this fight. Khabib wants this fight. George wants this fight. The UFC, you got to know, wants this fight. It's just timing. It's just when can they do this fight? They've got a number one contender that's on deck that needs to be cleared first. They've got to get that Khabib-Tony fight made. GSP is looking to push the UFC into making this sooner than what they want. And GSP ultimately is going to, so he's going to get what he wants, just maybe not at the time he wants. And that's why this is kind of like a game of chicken between them. And look at this tweet from Helwani. This is pretty telling too. Just spoke to GSP. So Helwani has spoken to GSP today after Khabib made the comment about fighting him. He didn't want to go into too much details. I asked about Khabib's message, and he said, I saw what Khabib wrote, and I appreciate it very much. Unfortunately, listen to this. These decisions aren't up to us. I will address everything at the press conference tomorrow. He's frustrated with the UFC. That's all it is. And I mark my words. He is not going to come out at this press conference. Of course, I could be wrong. I'm not a prophet. But he's not going to come out at this press conference and just definitively say, no matter what, if they offer me a fight for June against Khabib right now, I'm not taking it because I'm done. I have no interest in fighting. He's not going to say that. He's going to be very vague about what's going on. And he wants something specifically. The problem is there's other fighters besides just Georges St Pierre. And George has only fought one time in 5 years, but this isn't like Cain Velasquez. This is a guy who's kept in shape. He's done numerous interviews talking about if the reward is worth the risk, I will do it. He wants to add to his legacy. He wants to do something different. I've been saying forever that if they ever open up that 65-pound division, it would be perfect to meet the criteria of what George is asking for. He wants to do something where the reward is worth the risk. Well, what could be bigger than potentially being the first 3-division champion in the UFC if they opened up that 65-pound division? He's not going to cut all the way down to 55. This is George coming out there, and on top of this, you're seeing the media that's the problem with a lot of media. They refuse to do any sort of speculation. They just report the facts, which to a degree I appreciate that, but even with MMA media, they aren't looking at the bigger picture of things enough. Already Luke Thomas is out asking questions. What's the biggest memory of Georges St Pierre? And that's all this is going to be. It's going to be a big publicity grandstand that's going to get Georges St Pierre's name back in focus. People are going to be talking about him. People are going to be learning about him. Newer fans to the UFC that weren't really watching during his long reign are going to learn more about him. They're going to get his name out there. They're going to get people not wanting to, mentioning what fights they want to see him in and what they want him to come back for. And there's going to be extra talk from other fighters and stuff. And I think there's a couple guys in the lightweight division that are already seeing this. Look at these tweets from Dustin Poirier and Ali Aquina. Dustin Poirier comes out and says these guys should just release me. Ali Aquina is coming out and saying release me too. And when you look at this lightweight division, this is already a super stacked division that Khabib's on top of. Tony Ferguson's won 11 straight fights. This fight has to happen. Conor McGregor is still the biggest name in the UFC, and you know that they want to set up that money rematch with Khabib Nurmagomedov. And now they're throwing in Georges St Pierre, and so that leaves people like Dustin Poirier and Ali Aquina who have fought their way up the ranks. They know they're going to be looked over. They are not going to be guaranteed a number one contender fight next. They're not going to be able to just be like, oh, well, Dustin, I'm going to fight Tony, or Dustin, I'm going to fight Conor, and that means I'm going to fight Khabib next. Not necessarily. It's going to be hard for them to secure those fights with bigger names ahead of them. So there's a lot going on here. I do think that this is St. Pierre pushing his name to into headlines again. He's baiting the UFC. He's trying to draw them in to securing a fight. He's in no way saying that he is not capable of fighting or doesn't want to fight. So we're going to cover this a lot more on the podcast. So stay tuned to the CRP.